If you're tired of living paycheck to paycheck, if debt feels like chains around your destiny, then this message from Myles Munroe is your wake-up call. You'll discover the real reason God won't bless mismanagement, and the proven kingdom principles to break free, build wealth, and never serve money again. This isn't just financial advice, it's revelation that can shift your future. Watch till the end, because the final principle will expose the silent habit that's been keeping you broke without even realizing it. Like, comment, and subscribe. Your freedom journey starts right here. Before you can ever walk into financial freedom, you must first walk out of mental bondage. You do not become free when you pay off your last debt. You become free when you begin to think like a steward and not a slave. The battle for wealth is not first fought in the economy. It is fought in the mind. As long as your thinking is broken, your finances will follow. Many people cry out for more money. They ask for raises, promotions, and financial breakthroughs. But here's the truth. You do not rise to the level of your income. You rise to the level of your thinking. A poverty mindset will keep you trapped in lack, even if your bank account increases. A wealth mindset, on the other hand, can grow abundance even in the middle of a crisis. Let's look at an example. There was a man who won the lottery $2 million overnight. He was ecstatic, filled with dreams and ambitions, but within 2 years he was bankrupt, depressed, and isolated. Why? Because his mind was still poor. He upgraded his car, his house, his wardrobe, and his lifestyle, but he never upgraded his thinking. He was financially wealthy for a moment, but mentally bankrupt all along. He didn't lose his wealth. He never truly had it, because it was never birthed in his mind. That is why Romans 12:2 is powerful. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Not your job, not your budget, not your salary, but your mind. Until your mind changes, your money will always revert to your old patterns. A financial mindset must start with a clear identity. Are you a consumer or a manager, a borrower or an investor, a follower of trends or a builder of legacy? Too many people have made their financial identity based on survival. They wake up thinking about bills. They go to work to make ends meet. They borrow just to feel temporary relief. This is not abundance. This is captivity. God never intended for his children to be beggars. He called us to be stewards, rulers, administrators of his kingdom resources. But stewardship is a mindset. If you don't think like a steward, you'll spend like a slave. And if you keep spending like a slave, you'll keep serving your debt. Take the story of Lisa, a public school teacher in the U.S., earning less than $40,000 a year. She had over $90,000 in student loans and credit card debt. For years, she told herself, I'll always be broke. Teachers don't earn enough. This is just the system. But one day, something clicked. She read a book on biblical stewardship and realized that her debt wasn't just about money, it was about mindsets. She changed her vocabulary. She stopped saying, I can't afford it, and started asking, how can I manage this better? Lisa didn't get a new job. She didn't win the lottery. She didn't receive a supernatural check in the mail. What she received was a new mind. That mind helped her cut unnecessary expenses, build an emergency fund, budget with purpose, and pay off all her debt in under 5 years, on the same salary. The difference wasn't in her paycheck. It was in her perspective. You need to begin asking yourself new questions. Stop saying, how much can I afford? And start asking, does this align with my purpose? Stop asking, can I make the payment? And start declaring, I refuse to serve Pharaoh. I was born to walk free. Until you respect money as a servant, it will keep controlling you as a master. Money is not the goal. Purpose is. Money is a tool. It is supposed to serve the vision God placed inside of you, and tools only build what they are directed to build. If you don't have a vision for your finances, your emotions will hijack your decisions. That's why advertisers play on your feelings. They know if they can grab your emotions, they can get your money. But when you are anchored in vision, no marketing gimmick can pull you off course. Do you want to walk in financial freedom? Begin here. Renew your mind. Start seeing yourself not as a person trying to escape debt, but as a leader called to manage divine resources. Start declaring that you are no longer a financial victim. You are a kingdom steward. Change your thoughts, and your finances will follow. Master your mind, and money will become your servant. Desire is common. Discipline is rare. Every person wants to be debt-free, financially secure, and blessed. But desire alone doesn't change anything. You can want to be out of debt with all your heart, but unless your actions change, unless your disciplines align with your destiny, you will continue to live beneath your potential. Desire is emotional. Discipline is intentional. Emotion feels like progress because it stirs your soul, but only action moves your life forward. When people say they're waiting on God, many times they're really just avoiding responsibility. God will bless what you manage, not what you fantasize about. Financial breakthrough is not magic. It is not waiting for a prophet to call your name or for a stranger to drop money in your hand. Breakthrough begins when you decide to be disciplined. If God gives you increase, but you still have poor financial habits, you will turn abundance into anxiety. Let me be clear, some things are not spiritual, they are managerial. You don't cast out poor spending habits. You correct them. You don't fast and pray your way out of impulsive decisions. You train your soul to be subject to wisdom. Take the story of Darren. He was a young man with a heart for God, but no control over his spending. He would go to every conference, buy every new gadget, treat himself because he worked hard, and then cry out for financial help when the bills came in. He wasn't cursed. He was careless. No devil had to attack his finances. His lack of discipline was doing the job. Then, one day, Darren heard a message that shook him. It wasn't about miracles. It was about management. He learned that God will never fund irresponsibility. He learned that self-control is not optional. It's a fruit of the Spirit. So Darren changed. He started tracking his spending. He said no to emotional purchases. He created a budget, lived beneath his means, and within 2 years paid off $38,000 in debt. His income didn't change. His behavior did. Discipline is not easy, but it is always worth it. Every dollar you spend is a decision. You are either building your future or borrowing from it. When you spend money you don't have on things you don't need, you're enslaving your tomorrow for the pleasures of today. That's how debt traps us. It doesn't begin with huge decisions. It starts with little compromises. A dinner out when you had food at home, a gadget you didn't need, a subscription you never use. One decision after another, and before you know it, you're paying interest on your own impatience. The book of Proverbs is filled with wisdom on discipline. Proverbs 21:20 says, "The wise store up choice food and olive oil, but fools gulp theirs down." In other words, wisdom saves. Fools consume everything they get. Which are you? There's a reason God doesn't bless undisciplined hands with overflow, because excess without order is waste. Think about the miracle of the 5 loaves and 2 fish. Jesus fed 5,000, but afterward he told the disciples to gather the leftovers. Why? Because even in abundance, God hates waste. So if you want financial freedom, you must declare war on waste. Waste of time, waste of energy, waste of money. Discipline is how you prove to God that you are ready for more. Here's a powerful truth. God responds to patterns, not just prayers. He watches how you manage the little to determine if he can trust you with more. Luke 16:10 says, "Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much." Your daily disciplines are proof of your future capacity. You must create structure for your finances, set limits, tell your money where to go before it disappears, budget not just your income, but your emotions, set boundaries, discipline your appetite. If your spending is emotional, your financial life will always be unstable. A woman named Carla had a habit of stress spending. Every time life overwhelmed her, she'd shop online. But when her debt hit $24,000, she broke down, not just because of the money, but because of the shame. She realized she had been using money to medicate what only God could heal. Through counsel, prayer, and practical changes, she gained discipline. She started saving instead of spending, tithing instead of tipping God, and budgeting instead of blaming the devil. In 3 years, she not only paid off all her debt, she began helping other women do the same. That's the power of discipline. It transforms victims into victors. So ask yourself today, where is my desire costing me my destiny? Where have I been emotional when I should have been strategic? Who am I trying to impress while I drown in debt? Discipline demands honesty. It requires saying no to good things so you can say yes to great ones. Desire is a seed, but discipline is the water, and God does not bless empty seeds. Discipline is proof you are serious about your financial freedom. It is how you step out of the cycle of lack and walk boldly into stewardship. The reason most people stay in financial bondage is not because they don't work hard. It's because they don't plan intentionally. They hustle, they strive, they pray, but they don't manage, and where there is no management, there can be no multiplication. One of the most misunderstood words in personal finance is budget. To many, a budget feels like a restriction. It sounds like punishment. But the truth is, budgeting is not bondage. It is the blueprint for your breakthrough. A budget is not a prison. It's a path. It doesn't chain you down. It guides you forward. When God created the world, He didn't leave it in chaos. He gave it form. He set boundaries for the ocean. He structured the heavens. He divided light from darkness. That's management. That's a budget in divine form. And He has called us to be managers of what He puts in our hands. Luke 14:28 says, "Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Won't you first sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it?" That's budgeting, sitting down, planning, estimating, counting the cost. Financial wisdom always begins with intentional planning, not random spending. Let me share a real story. A young couple named Raymond and Denise earned a combined income of about $6,000 per month. But by the middle of each month, they were already borrowing from credit cards to survive. They were frustrated and blamed everything: the economy, the government, even spiritual warfare. But the real problem was simple. They had no budget. Their money had no mission. When they finally sat down to track their spending, they discovered that over $800 a month was leaking through online subscriptions, daily coffee, spontaneous shopping, and avoidable bank fees. That's $600 a year, money that could have eliminated a credit card, built savings, or invested into a side business. What changed everything? Not more money, a budget. Budgeting is not a sign of poverty. It is the behavior of kings. Even kingdoms have treasurers. Nations have budgets. Corporations plan every dollar. Why? Because freedom without structure is destruction. The real reason people avoid budgeting is because it forces them to confront truth. It shines a light on waste. It demands accountability, and it exposes what we often ignore, that many of our financial struggles are the result of poor planning, not a lack of blessing. God is not obligated to increase what you refuse to manage. If you're praying for more, but you're not managing what you already have, you are out of alignment. Heaven cannot multiply mismanagement. It violates kingdom law. A proper budget must begin with vision. Before you decide where to put your money, you must know where you are going. What is the purpose of your financial life? Is it to be debt-free, own property, fund missions, raise legacy-minded children? Once your vision is clear, your budget becomes a weapon. It is no longer just numbers on a page. It becomes a map toward your destiny. Here's a practical truth. Every dollar you earn is a soldier, and without a budget, you send those soldiers to war without a strategy. No wonder you keep losing battles. But when you budget, you give your dollars orders. You assign every dollar a purpose. You tell it, you go to groceries, you go to savings, you go to debt, you go to tithe. That is leadership. That is stewardship. Another woman, Monica, used to live in shame because she made $3,200 a month but had no savings and constantly borrowed. She said, "I don't earn enough to budget." But that's a lie from the enemy. The less you earn, the more important budgeting becomes. When she finally embraced it, she discovered how much she was spending on eating out, over $400 a month. She cut back, cooked more meals, and in 8 months saved her first $2,000 emergency fund. That was her turning point. Freedom requires structure. Freedom without direction is chaos. Even the children of Israel had to follow divine instruction when they left Egypt. God didn't just lead them out. He led them through with a plan, a pattern, and a purpose. Your financial exodus must be guided by a plan. That plan is your budget. Let me be real. If you don't tell your money where to go, someone else will. Companies are fighting for your attention. Ads are targeting your weaknesses. Sales are seducing your senses. But when you live by a budget, you say, "I'm not buying purpose with impulse. I'm building destiny with discipline." Don't fear the word budget. Embrace it. Don't see it as restriction. See it as protection. It doesn't limit your life. It preserves your freedom, because budgeting isn't about what you can't do. It's about ensuring you can do what truly matters. One of the greatest enemies of financial freedom is impatience. Most people don't need more money. They need more maturity. They are not poor because they are underpaid. They are poor because they keep paying for things that don't matter. Until you master the art of delayed gratification, you will always be a slave to debt. Debt is not always caused by emergencies. More often, it is caused by emotions. You saw it, you wanted it, you bought it. And now you're paying for it with interest. But what you didn't realize is this: you didn't just buy a thing, you mortgaged your future. Every time you choose impulse over insight, you sign a contract to stay in financial bondage. Let's call this what it is. You are financing your future to gratify your present. That vacation you couldn't afford. That new phone you didn't need. That shopping spree to impress people who aren't even thinking about you. These are emotional decisions dressed as lifestyle, but they become chains on your freedom. Proverbs 22:7 says, "The borrower is servant to the lender." That means every time you use credit to feed your feelings, you are voluntarily becoming a slave. And the chains don't come from the bank. They come from the bondage of broken priorities. Take the example of Marcus. He was a 30-year-old engineer who always looked successful on the outside, latest car, designer clothes, weekend getaways. But inside, he was drowning. He had 5 credit cards, no savings, and was working 2 jobs just to survive. He thought the problem was his salary, but the real issue was his appetite. When he finally sat down with a financial mentor, he realized he wasn't living a wealthy life. He was living a borrowed life. Everything he owned was owned by someone else. He had built a castle on credit, and now he was sinking in the debt that supported his illusion. That conversation changed him. He sold the car, stopped eating out, cut up his credit cards, and moved into a smaller apartment. For the first time in years, he started sleeping peacefully. In 3 years, he paid off over $70 in debt. And he gained something far greater than money. He gained freedom. Why? Because he stopped financing emotions and started funding purpose. Here's the truth. You cannot fulfill your destiny while living beyond your means. Every purpose has a cost. And if you're using all your income to pay for lifestyle instead of investing in legacy, you're building a life that looks good but ends in ruin. The most dangerous financial decision is to look rich when you are not. That's how people end up stuck for decades, buying things they don't need to impress people they don't even like. Image is expensive, but identity is free. When you know who you are, you don't need things to prove it. Jesus never owned a mansion, but he walked in divine purpose. Paul was often broke, but he wrote the majority of the New Testament. Kingdom greatness isn't built on things. It's built on purpose, discipline, and obedience. You need to break the addiction to now. Stop saying, "I deserve this." That's not the voice of purpose. That's the voice of debt. Purpose says, "I'll wait." Discipline says, "Not yet." Wisdom says, "It's not in the plan." When you live by impulse, you become predictable to the enemy. He knows exactly how to trap you, through your appetite. This is why fasting is not just spiritual, it is financial training. When you can say no to food, you learn to say no to fantasy spending. When you can delay pleasure, you are being prepared for lasting prosperity. Because abundance without maturity is always wasted, here's a practical challenge. Before you buy anything over a certain amount, say $100, wait 48 hours, pray, review your budget, ask yourself, do I need this or want this? Will this purchase bring me closer to or further from my goals? Am I buying this to feel better or to fulfill purpose? Most of the time, that delay will expose the truth. It wasn't a need, it was a mood. Remember, financial freedom is not about depriving yourself. It's about directing yourself. You're not saying no because you're broke. You're saying no because you're building something. You're not rejecting pleasure. You're reserving it for the right time, the right reason, and the right season. God cannot fund rebellion. He blesses order. And when you keep financing the flesh, you shut the door to divine flow. But when you walk in wisdom, deny short-term pleasures, and prioritize purpose, God will multiply what you have in your hand. Debt is not just a financial issue, it's a spiritual one, because it makes you a servant to something you were meant to rule over. And God did not call you to be a slave to lenders. He called you to be a steward of kingdom resources. So stop mortgaging your calling for materialism. Stop financing your future for feelings. Train your desires. Choose discipline, and you'll walk into the kind of freedom that money can never buy.